Welcome to the streets of the U.S. Today, I will be discussing the KKK. The Ku Klux Klan is America's first domestic terrorist group. They are a hate group of white supremacists that target other racial groups. The group they target are Native Americans, Jews, African Americans, Latinos, Asians, Catholics, gay people, and Muslims. The KKK has existed in three different eras. The first era was from 1865 to 1872. The first Klan was created after the Civil War. The Klan was created in Pulaski, Tennessee, when 6 Confederate veterans met on December 24, 1865. The first Grand Wizard of the KKK was Confederate General Nathan Bedford Forrest. He was the Grand Wizard from 1867 to 1869. Nathan Bedford Forrest was a slave trader, slave owner, and a cotton plantation owner. He also was involved in the Fort Pillow massacre, where several hundred Union troops were killed. A lot of those troops that were killed were black. Each chapter of the Ku Klux Klan operates independently from one another. The first Klan would kill black people, burn their houses, and leave them in the streets with no arrest or prosecution. There is an unknown number of victims killed by the Ku Klux Klan. The first Klan assassinated political leaders, both black and white. They assassinated 3 members of the South Carolina legislature and assassinated Arkansas Congressman James Hines. Congressman Hines was an advocate for former slaves' civil rights. Members of the KKK wore white costumes to hide their identity. It's estimated that they killed thousands of blacks. They also took their land that the blacks controlled. The Klan used murder to intimidate potential black voters. In Georgia, due to Klan intimidation, only one black person voted for Ulysses Grant in 1868. The Klan killed more than 150 black Americans in Florida and even hundreds more in other counties in the United States. In Louisiana, more than 2,000 people were killed by the KKK. The Freedmen's Bureau kept records of Klan murders and assaults. None of these cases were ever prosecuted or arrests made. The first Klan had an estimated membership of 500,000 nationwide. They could get 40,000 members together within 5 days' notice, and this was boasted by Nathan Bedford Forrest. In 1871, the President Ulysses Grant signed the Butler's legislation. This legislation was the Ku Klux Klan Enforcement Act of 1870. The act supposedly banned the use of terror, force, or robbery to stop people from voting because of their race. The first Klan was taken apart within a year. During this time frame, the Klan was operating all over the southern states. President Grant sent Union soldiers into 9 South Carolina counties. Hundreds of Klan members were fined or put in prison. They were given prison sentences of 3 months or 5 years in prison. With the first era Klan being disbanded, new groups with the same white supremacy ideas emerged. One of these groups were the White League. This group was started in Grant Parish, Louisiana. This group had Confederate veterans that were responsible for the Colfax Massacre. The Colfax Massacre happened on Easter Sunday in 1873 in Colfax, Louisiana. There were 62 to 153 black militiamen murdered while surrendering to the white mob. The members of the mob were also former KKK members, and they were part of the White League. Only 3 white mob participants were killed. Another splinter group of the first era Klan was the Red Shirts, and they were created in Mississippi in 1875. This group also used violence to intimidate black people. The second era of the KKK met at the top of Stone Mountain, Georgia in 1915. William Joseph Simmons used older Klansmen from the first era to revive the group. He also used documents from the first era Klan. The earlier Klan did not wear white costumes or burn crosses. Film Birth of a Nation made the second era Klan extremely popular. By 1925, the KKK marched in several mass parades throughout the United States. By this time, they had almost 4 million members. In some states, the Klan had major political power. Internal power struggles, sex scandals, and newspaper articles reduced the influence of the second era Klan. KKK came back in the 1960s to go against the civil rights movement. Their goal was to preserve segregation in the southern states. They did numerous crimes throughout the 60s, but one of the most heinous crimes happened in 1963 when 4 young black girls were killed in the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing in Birmingham, Alabama. Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, Carol Denise McNair were all killed from the church bombing. The bombs also injured between 14 and 22 people. Sarah Collins Rudolph was a survivor of the church bombing and is known as the 5th little girl. She lost an eye and still has pieces of glass in her body today. As of September of 2022, the state of Alabama has not compensated her for injuries suffered from that terrorist attack 59 years ago. The church bombing was a deliberate attack by 4 local KKK members involved in an Alabama chapter. They used 19 sticks of dynamite equipped with a timing device under the stairs on the east side of the church. In May of 1965, the FBI named 4 suspects by the last names of Cash, Chambliss, Blanton, and Cherry. No prosecutions of the 4 suspects happened at that time. J. Edgar Hoover blocked all federal prosecution against the suspects. He refused to give any evidence that the FBI agents had against them during their investigation. The FBI finally opened an investigation in 1995. The suspect, Chambliss, had died 10 years earlier. During this investigation, they found 9,000 pieces of evidence that was never given to the DA, William Baxley. It wasn't until May of 2000 that the FBI officially named those suspects as members of the KKK. Terrorists were actually a part of a KLAN splinter group called the Cahaba Boys. By that time, Thomas Blanton and Bobby Cherry were the only suspects still alive. On May 16, 2000, the two were indicted for the murders in Alabama. The two faced 8 criminal counts, and 4 of those counts were for first-degree murder. Blanton was sentenced to life in prison. He died in prison on June 26, 2020. Bobby Cherry was convicted and got life in prison. He died of cancer in prison on November 18, 2004. In 1981, in Mobile, Alabama, the KKK lynched and killed 19-year-old Michael Donald. The local KKK chapter was known as the United Klans of America, and they had hung Michael on Herndon Avenue in Mobile. Henry Hayes was convicted of the murder and given the death penalty. In 1997, he was executed. James Knowles testified against Hayes and got life in prison. A third suspect got life in prison, and the fourth suspect died before the trial could begin. The execution of Hayes was the first in Alabama since 1913 for a white on black crime. This was the only execution of a KKK member during the 20th century. In 1987, Beulah Donald, Michael's mother, was awarded $7 million in damages for her wrongful death lawsuit against the United Klans of America. In 2006, the city of Mobile renamed Herndon Ave to Michael Donald Avenue. Just last year, in 2021, it was reported that Joseph Moore was an undercover informant for the FBI who got inside the KKK in North Florida. He was an Army vet who discovered that many of the Florida Klan members were in local law enforcement. He helped stop 2 murder plots. One of those murder plots included 3 Klansmen who worked for the Florida Department of Corrections as guards in Lake Butler, Florida. The 3 Klansmen had planned to kill a black inmate that was serving time in that correctional facility. The Florida Department of Corrections denied the allegations. The Klansmen were eventually convicted. Joseph stated that these Klan members had infiltrated law enforcement in Florida and as well as in Georgia. If you enjoy this channel, please like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you.